So
Good stuff.
obviously we can't tell you how much we appreciate just the time. I mean, it means the world to us. I'll probably smile the whole time you're on the show. So you're bringing a lot of joy to two guys' lives today.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Diary of the Madman, the ultimate Ozzy Osbourne podcast, where we geek the fuck out about all things Ozzy and all things Ozzy related. I am Josh Crum, and with me, as always, is Mr. Dan Drago. How's it going, Dan?
I am doing amazing. This is definitely the most excited I've ever been to do this show today.
Oh, that's excellent to hear. So, is there a said reason why you would be so excited?
Well, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, sir, that would be the answer.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Jack Osbourne.
How about that, folks? We have an Osborne on the podcast. It only took us about 2 years. Not too shabby, right?
Pretty good.
Great. It's been awesome. So,
yeah.
Jack, real quick, we just want to talk about some of the amazing things you have going on right now. I know you guys, you just finished up Special Forces. You're doing Night of Terror. You're doing Portals to Hell. You're doing the Osborne's podcast. You're all over the place. You're like the new medium mogul, man. I love it. So if you want to talk a little bit about some of the things you have going on, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. There's so many things going on right now, and it kind of all just came together by accident. Like, just so happened that like everything I've been working on for the last year just all happened to air and get released in the same kind of like 8 week kind of window. And so it's been pretty chaotic. It's been really busy. Lots of moving parts between, two podcasts and the paranormal shows and doing the Fox Special Forces show. So it's been busy. I'm really looking forward to the holidays coming up, so I can just unplug a little bit. And,
no question.
Bam.
What do you? I'm sorry, Josh. What do you?
I know every.
Go
ahead, man. Go ahead. Now, I was gonna say, I know every time I log on to, Paramount Plus or Hulu or any of those channels, I see a new Jack Osbourne show. I'm like, God, he's the busiest guy in Hollywood right now.
I wish my bank account reflected it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. What drew you to the paranormal side? I mean, you've seen, so much paranormal side. How did that kind of start?
I grew up watching the X-Files, and it was kind of something that, and actually, like, I've probably never even shared this part of it. Like, it was something that me and my dad really connected on when I was young. Like, he would always go and buy me like UFO books and like, show me documentaries. It was something that him and I really kind of enjoyed together a lot. And it just like, it was just a hobby. And then in my kind of mid-20s, I did this I got asked to do this paranormal investigation show, and just one thing led to the next. And about 6 years ago now, nearly 6 years ago, I just started doing a ton of paranormal stuff. And it just, it's a really interesting community, because the paranormal fans, the ones that will, really passionate about the subject matter and watch all the shows, they're hard to you can't really bullshit them. Like you can kind of see through it. And I think the way that I've always approached the subject matter has always been very genuine. I haven't tried to, I've never staged anything. We've never like faked evidence, and
awesome.
We don't pretend to get possessed, and we don't do any of the hokey stuff. And I think they just kind of they trust the investigations I do, and it just
Yeah, and I think that is a good point, Jack, because for me personally, when I watch those kind of shows, if I feel like it's fraudulent or set up, I just lose interest immediately. One of my favorite paranormal shows, and I'm having a hard time remembering the name of it now, but the beauty of that show was they tried to debunk everything, which I appreciated. Fact or fake. Yeah, that was it. I love that show for that reason, because I knew it was legit, and if they couldn't debunk it, then hey, give it a little validity, but I knew at least it wasn't staged.
Yeah, totally.
You have to have credibility, right, in that whole audience.
And
1,000.
but it's also like, it's kind of like, it's really weird to be like, yeah, I've got credibility in the paranormal space. It's like, it's a space, so it's really like, because it's not like a actual, it's not respected, I guess, on a intellectual level, as far as, as a real science. It's considered fringe, hokey, people playing make-believe. There's all sorts of kind of stigmas around it. So it's really easy to fall into the hokey with it. And so I just try my hardest to always just be truthful about the experience.
Authentic, I think is right, right? Yeah.
So let me ask you, so the Osbornes want to believe. Does Jack Osbourne believe? Do you believe in aliens? Do you believe in spirits? Do you believe in things like that?
Sure. Yeah, I do. I believe, my definition of like spirits isn't the normal, like, I believe it's something, I just don't know exactly what it is. I have some theories as to what I think it could be. So I do believe in whatever is happening. With UFOs and ghosts and extraterrestrials and all that. 100%. The universe is so fucking big. It is
huge, right?
It's like, you can't, you can't. It would make no sense at all if there was no other intelligent life out there in the universe.
Right.
That's exactly my answer all the time to people when we have this discussion. Like, we've got this entire universe out there. Like, why would we be the only ones? It makes no sense.
I don't know if they're in flying cigars coming here, but I definitely believe that there has got to be intelligent life, because the universe is literally infinite. So there's got to be something out there.
But I read somewhere that there's more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on planet.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
Think about that. That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah. So if we don't mind talking a little bit about Osborne's Media, that's really starting to blow up in the Osborne's podcast. Obviously, guys, you can catch it. I'm sure everybody's already listening to it on anywhere you stream our show, any place. But what's kind of the future of the Osborne's Media? I know you guys are all talking about doing your own podcasts.
Yeah.
Is that the end of Ozzy's Boneyard at Sirius XM? That's the first.
No, he's still doing Ozzy's Bone. He's still going to do Ozzy's Boneyard. Although, I can kind of, I'll give you guys some exclusive goss.
Here we go.
He's doing a podcast with Billy Morrison on his own. It's I think currently the title's called the Madhouse Chronicles, and he's doing,
I love it,
30-minute podcasts. Just they touch on all sorts of things. They watch funny YouTube videos. It's just them riffing, and it's not all, Ozzy's Boneyard is very music focused and stuff like that, and this is them riffing about and everything. So
just shooting the shit.
Yeah. You gave me a scare for a second. I thought you were going to say the show was going to be called Diary of the Madmen.
No. Yeah, guys. So you expect a letter from the lawyers, sorry.
Exactly. I will say, as far as Osborne Media goes, if you wanted to expand that into the fan world, we would all obviously be down for a contract or anything you guys want to throw at us. We'd be interested in getting into the mix on that. So
we'll see how the growth of the company goes, and depending how profitable we are, maybe next
I was going to say
we'll talk.
I was just going to tell you, I'll have the P&L on your desk in the morning. Exactly. That's funny. So that's great to hear. I mean, so what is your podcast specifically going to be on?
So mine's called Ghost and Grit. And we talk paranormal, and I have different celebrity guests on every episode, and we dive into a little bit about who they are, what their backstory is, and with a heavy focus on where their grit is. I think in order to be successful, you have to have grit, no matter what. So we lean into that, and it's pretty cool. We have so far it's been really amazing guests and just awesome conversations, and it's pretty cool.
When I've listened. Go ahead, Josh. I've asked 1,000 questions.
You're fine. I've listened to all the Osborne's podcasts so far, but I've not got to listen to yours. I saw you had Dr. Drew on the other day. It's looking to be an interesting conversation. I would definitely will listen to it. I just haven't yet, but it looks fun.
Hey, yeah, Drew. Yeah, Drew's that's actually might be one of my favorite ones I've done. It was great.
Yeah. So I got to ask. I'm
I was
sorry,
just
Dan.
going to ask real quick, when does Ozzy's podcast debut?
We were going to try and get it out before Christmas, but I think it's going to be sometime in January, I think.
Okay. Perfect.
That's the goal. Yeah. And it'll be on, it'll be on his YouTube channel and, everywhere where there's podcasts and stuff. So
yeah,
it's really funny too. Really.
Oh, it will be. And you got the
Listen.
video to go with it also, right? So that's going to be great too, that you can see, the expressions and stuff. That's one thing that Dan and I, we want to venture into that soon. We haven't yet. And we know that's kind of what's lacking on our YouTube page is actual video to go with the audio, because it seems that podcasting is definitely turning to that. People want to see, and that's something we need to nail down.
And we're learning that, that was when we released the first run of the Osborne's podcast, we didn't do video with it. And I think it kind of bit us in the ass a bit, but now it podcast is very much a visual kind of formula.
Right.
Yeah. And you can tell your own tale. You don't have any overhead. There's no corporate executives telling you what you have to do. You can talk about what you want to talk about and discuss what you want to discuss. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Can't get fired if we're our own bosses.
So before we move on from Ghost and Grit, let me ask you one question. Being a Kentucky guy, I spoke to you last week in Lexington at Scarefest.
Yeah.
Have you ever made it out to Waverly Hills in Louisville yet?
I must have been asked that maybe 20 times at the convention. I've never been to Waverly. I've wanted to investigate Waverly. It's just never worked out. I think it kind of just issues with the management of the facility and them not being comfortable with certain aspects of making a TV show about ghost hunts. But I know so many people that have investigated there, and they've just had the wildest experiences, and they always talk about the body shoot and and all that stuff. So I'm one of these days I would like to get out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we mentioned Fact or Fake earlier. They said that was the spookiest place they'd ever been to when that show went out there.
Yeah, as you can tell by my accent, I am not from Kentucky. I'm from Phoenix, and I know you guys have spent a lot of time in Arizona out here. You guys have done Tucson, and I think you've been to the Grand Canyon as well. I think there's a lot of haunted places, of course, up in Prescott and stuff like that. There's so many in the Southwest. Yeah. What are your thoughts of Arizona? I mean, are you out there often?
I love Arizona. I've been all over the state, and I always have a really amazing time there. I actually was in Arizona the week the lockdown happened.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I was working on Portals to Hell, and we were midway through the season, and we all went home from there, and then the lockdown happened. So it was
crazy. That's awesome.
I'll never forget that.
So going back to when you were younger, Jack, obviously we're an Ozzy Osbourne based show, and we love to talk about your dad and all things Ozzy and all things Ozzy related. And being his son, you're pretty related. What's your earliest memories of like being on tour with the band and your dad and your mom and everybody? Like how far back does your memory go on like what tour that can you really recall?
It's kind of hard to pinpoint as far as time stamping it, because it was a constant. I was always on the road with my dad. Trying to think.
I think in the West for the Wicked tour, I mean, you probably don't remember this. He would bring you out on his shoulders.
Yeah,
he would. Yeah.
That was something that I have memories of that. It's just hard to timestamp because like I was probably 8 weeks old when my dad went on the road, and I went, I went along. So it was just it was kind of just a constant.
Just all really. Yeah.
I do have timestamps of like the early 90s a lot. Like I remember when my dad toured with Alice in Chains and when Ugly Kid Joe, because Whitfield Crane is still a very close friend of mine. He would actually be a great guest for this podcast.
He would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
He would be. We need to reach out to him. You can recommend that to him for us.
Sure, I will. Yeah.
Yeah, he would be. I know he's a dear family friend of all you guys, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's
what a great voice. I literally was watching Ugly Kid Joe's video yesterday, and I just was blown away. Really, nobody talks about how strong and powerful that guy's voice is.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Whit is a phenomenal singer.
Yeah,
and frontman too. He's great.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously you were very hands-on in Ozzfest and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how that started. And obviously the first Ozzfest show ever was in Phoenix. I was there, third row. You guys did 2 dates, Phoenix and then California, just as a quick little run.
Yeah.
But what was kind of your, role within it? And, how obviously you took it very seriously, picking all the bands and stuff. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, my role with getting involved in Ozzfest literally came from, I would be after school, my mom or one of her assistants, the nanny, whatever, would drop us off at my mom's office, which was not far from the house, because she was always, my mom lived at the office during the time of Ozzfest because it was such a beast to organize and put together. And, and I would just be minding my own business, and they'd be throwing out, oh, okay, we're going to book this band and this, that, and other. And I would just always yell, yeah, they suck. Or no, it literally started with me being like, no, that band sucks.
All right, Jack, you got to tell us which band sucked. Which ones did you veto from Ozzfest?
I don't even.
Lollapalooza vetoed your dad, so you can veto somebody else's ass. Let us know.
I'm trying to think who I can't remember anything specific.
It was just 25 years ago. Come on.
I know, right?
Right, that's it.
No,
exactly.
Here's the funny thing, right? There were tons of metal bands, but it was eventually the bands that I was like, yeah, they suck. They would eventually end up on Ozzfest,
right?
Just because there was a lot, but there wasn't a lot that could afford the tour support or could afford, they would get backing from the record, whatever, because there was costs associated with going on Ozzfest.
And I think with you being so young, you probably wanted bands with street cred more than necessarily media cred. So
sure.
You're going, we don't really want those guys. Yeah, they're all over MTV, but you got to hear this other band. They're kind of up and coming. They're kick-ass. And I went to Ozzfest pretty much every year until the very end when it started kind of going to like Dallas only, or, and it kind of started phasing out. I loved, and looking back at it as an adult, the progression of seeing a band early, second stage, the next year headlining second stage, 2 years later they're on the main stage. Seeing that progression, Disturbed and Godsmack, Slipknot, so many bands. I remember seeing Slipknot the first year they were there, and I looked at my friend, I said, Clown Posse wannabes or what? Like, what is this? And literally making fun of it. And then a year later, it's like Slipknot, and they're Slipknot, So that was so fun to looking back and seeing bands and people like Linkin Park, who would go on to do stadiums. We saw them at Ozzfest doing a 45-minute set.
Mm-hmm.
You look back at stuff like that, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's it's really, I think there could be an argument. You could have an argument that when Ozzfest ended was when the decline of hard rock and heavy metal began.
I agree.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
It's always our argument too about Ozzy specifically. Ozzy, and I'm sure your mom has everything to do with it, but Ozzy never went out of style. I mean, you look at all of these hard rock bands that, I don't want to mention other band names that get compared to Ozzy all the time, which drive me crazy, but 80s Ozzy ruled. 90s, how many people in 95 were selling double platinum albums like Osmosis? It's absolutely unreal. And then he went on to form Ozzfest, thanks to your mom and you, of course. But Ozzy always stayed relevant, and I think that's what makes him such the iconic artist he is.
Yeah, it's really, it's one of those things where, I've produced 2 documentaries about him now, and when I do that, I have to put on a very you put on a different hat. I don't produce it from the lens of, oh, he's my dad, so I'm going to make a documentary about my dad. I make a documentary about Ozzy Osbourne, and
honest.
And so I have to kind of I have to create that distance. And when you look at it, he's this I don't know of another musician who's had, and I'm not just saying this, it's just it's the fact. It's how many musicians have had a significant cultural impact on society of every decade of their career.
2 bands, 3: Elvis, the Beatles, and Ozzy. That's honest.
Yeah, but
just being honest.
But here's the thing, though: Elvis, the Beatles, they just were a constant. They didn't change. They didn't continue to change the landscape every decade.
Right.
Like you look at, 70s, it's Sabbath. 80s, it's solo Ozzy, changing sound, changing his whole everything is when he became his own beast. 90s, you got him starting Ozzfest. 2000s, you got him creating doing the Osbornes. I mean, we only did that. The only reason that show existed in the first place was because of him. And so it's really it's interesting to look at it from that perspective.
And despite it all, the listeners of our show have heard me and Dan rant over and over. The man's never mentioned for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What the fuck?
Oh, it drives me crazy.
Never mentioned solo ever. And
Yeah.
it's like, who is more Rock and Roll Hall of Fame than Ozzy Osbourne? Like, what the fuck? He's never brought up.
The conversations that happen, I guess, are, oh, well, he's in because he's in with Sabbath, and it's like, well, no, it's a very different. It's very different. Yeah.
In America, he has outsold Sabbath 2-1. I mean, I don't think people realize that he's way more popular in America, as a solo artist than he ever was in Black Sabbath. It's like, what is he, a little over 30 million according to RIAA, and like 15 million for Black Sabbath? So, he's one of the biggest selling artists of all time. I mean, he's up there with names like Phil Collins and all of these guys, and it just drives me crazy that it's never talked about.
Yeah. Well, it's because my dad has never been it's my belief that a lot of the Hall of Fame stuff and that it's a lot of politicking, and my dad's never been one to like rub shoulders, and get, go to the events, and he's not that guy. And so I think that is I don't think it's the only contributing factor, but it is a factor.
I will say your dad made a very strange cameo appearance that you may not even know about in the new Milli Vanilli documentary. Did you know he's in that?
What?
We're breaking news to Jack now.
That's right.
I was watching the new Milli Vanilli documentary, and they said the downfall of those guys was when they agreed to play the Grammys, because of course everything was lip synced. It wasn't even them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it shows them perform, and then it shows the audience, and everyone's just kind of like in disgust because they could kind of see through it. And it shows Ozzy. I was shocked that he was there at the Grammys that year. This would have been like 1989 or 90, I guess. And even on the bottom of the screen, it says Ozzy Osbourne. And he's just looking so disgusted at what he just saw on the stage.
I think they got a bad rap.
I do too. Their album is excellent.
It is.
Like, everyone fucking lip syncs now. It's
everybody. They were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
100%. That's awesome. Oh, crazy. So it's funny because for me, I got into Ozzy in 1981. So I've been a long time. And I mean, I used to argue with people, Jack, that like, oh, he's a devil worshiper. All the fun. People today don't really realize how notorious your father was back in the 80s. It was unbelievable. And now he's like, I mean, I literally was watching TV last night. This is no joke. War Pigs was on the new WWE pay-per-view. War Pigs is on Napoleon, and Crazy Train was on another commercial, almost back to back to back. I looked at my wife and I was like, Ozzy is everywhere. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
We were telling Gus G on our last episode, because we were talking about Crazy Train, and I said I was watching Monday Night Football, and it was coming out of commercial playing Crazy Train while showing the score, and then it went to the Applebee's commercial playing Crazy Train. And I'm like,
exactly.
It's crazy. It's Crazy Train.
Right.
I am wearing an Osmosis shirt, as you can see. We're diehard Osmosis fans. Like, to me, that is a brilliant record. So I got to ask a personal question. My Little Man is amazing. I can barely, listen to it from my own son. It's like Ozzy, and I think Lemmy helped. But those lyrics are just amazing. Two things. A, how amazing is that song? How does it move you emotionally? And B, how do you look at it differently now as a father?
It's a good question. I don't think I've listened to that song in a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't. And I think, I share the same love of Osmosis for you. I do think it is one of, his stronger albums. And I think he even doesn't even give it as much.
No, he doesn't. Because he had a miserable time making it.
Well, exactly. Yeah,
and that's it.
Did you guys hear those stories on the pod? We talked about that.
When
album.
we talk about it on our show, when Ozzy speaks about his prior records, he relates to the process more than the product.
No question.
And how he feels about them.
Oh, for sure. That's so 100% true. So yeah, I don't. It's funny. Like, I probably should, give it a listen. I remember when he told me. I remember hearing the song for the first time, and you know, and they burned. It was like a real rough demo, and they burned. You know, I had a cassette of it. And I remember being like really just like blown away that he'd done that. And it's funny because you know he'd done the track Amy for my
which I love.
My Little Man, and Kelly. It was funny. She was always like, where's my fucking song? Where's my
right? Hey, and then you got to go in the video though.
My dad turned around and goes, well, we got a #1 together doing
exactly.
There you go. And she's in the No More Tears video.
She is,
yeah. So I mean, that's how I always like did it in my brain. You know, he wrote a song for Amy, wrote a song for Jack, and let Kelly be in the video. So it's all about the same time frame.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
In general, Jack, like how much do you listen to your father's music? Do you ever do this? I know it's kind of different being in the world of it, but how often do you listen?
I listen to it a decent amount in a way that I want my kids to be familiar with it. So I will play it for them. I love Sabbath. Like Sabbath is like I'm a huge Sabbath fan. I love all my dad's music, obviously, but like Sabbath is like something that I really enjoy. And I think for me, I think maybe it's because it's like, well, it's not just my dad. It's like that's
the band.
It's a band, and so like it doesn't feel as like cringe, I guess.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, and you like the heavier music a little bit too. You kind of turn on to heavier music. So
and I was a huge stoner rock fan. Like, you know, I love that whole, you know, I love the I don't know, I love the meatiness of that. But then, you know, Diary and Blizzard, I think two of the greatest heavy, you know, hard rock albums ever.
No, they're the greatest two hard rock albums of all time. Both agree.
Exactly. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Diary and Blizzard are two of the greatest hard rock, the greatest hard rock.
There we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do. I want my kids to be aware and familiar with my dad's catalog. It's just, you know, it's a part of that. You know, it's part of that legacy as well.
Well, that video you released recently of Maple watching him pop, that was the cutest darn thing ever. And anyone that has kids will just gush over that. That was so cute.
It's crazy. I don't have TikTok, but my wife does, and it's got like 23 million views.
No way.
It's like insanely viral on TikTok.
Listen, Ozzy Osbourne is famous, but no one's more famous than cats and babies. People love cats and babies.
This is true.
So I have to ask a selfish question. So I know your dad has a lot of unreleased material. So there's the Ozzyland record, there's X-Ray, there's Rasputin musical, there's supposedly a '99 album called I Did It All Because of You. I know. How have you heard all of that? I guess is the question.
Yeah, I think I have. The one that I heard the most, I believe, was the Steve I album he did.
Oh, God, we're so jealous. That's our holy grail.
Yeah, that's our holy grail.
It's fucking good.
Yeah,
it's really fucking good. I should say, there's a few. I'm trying to remember because there was a few, and then he did a whole album with Mark Hudson before the Rasputin thing.
Right.
There's a
that's
couple.
Ozzyland.
That's Ozzyland.
Yeah, that's Ozzyland. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a couple. Like you know what it is? I think it at the time, it wasn't good at the time because of, you know, these were albums that were done in the 90s, and you're going up against fucking giants back then. You've got Nirvana, Pearl Jam, all these huge. I mean, that was
Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, and Metallica's Black Album, and
100%. And that was arguably the height of hard rock back then. You know, just in history. So I think it was, you know, for the 90s, they just felt the albums weren't strong enough.
Okay. I think there's record label issues with the Steve Vai one, if I'm not mistaken.
I think, you know, I remember, I saw something recently when he was talking about it. But I was there for the
Steve. He said the same. He said it's kick ass. He's like, talk to Sharon about releasing that. Yeah, it's kind of, he put it in her ball court. So
yeah, I could see in the, you know, at some point, you know, it might, you know, everything fine, you know, you wait long, everything sees the light of day.
Yeah, for sure.
The next follow-up question is, when are you going to invite Dan and I out to hear these things? That's the next question. Like,
I was just going to say, if you have any questions, just play it for us, and we'll tell
we
you
can
exactly
book flights, you know.
How about this? When you get the big man on the podcast, you can ask him.
Awesome.
Well, that's the next question for you also. When you going to get the big man on?
That's so cool. Yeah,
that's what this podcast is built, Jack. And I think I told you this when I met you that day. We're built around those kind of topics, truthfully. Like Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman. We love those records, but they've been discussed to death. Sure. Our opening pilot episode was an in-depth conversation about osmosis.
Yeah.
Because we want to talk about things that other fans may not be so aware of and turn them onto it.
Yeah.
Right. We actually talk a lot about later Ozzy, because I think that is so overlooked, because I think Patient Number 9 is his best record since Osmosis, to be perfectly honest. I think Ordinary Man was a great step in the right direction, but Patient Number 9, I just still can't get over how he wrote a record that good at his age. It's and I know Andrew Watt was a big part of it, but he sounds amazing.
Totally. Yeah. Andrew is he's a phenomenal producer in the sense that he knows how to work with my dad. He gets it. He understands it. My dad, where he's at and the way that he works now with writing, there's like spurts, and sometimes that little like, all right, let's do this is an hour or two. And then sometimes it's like 10 days of just like back to back, let's crank it. Like Ordinary Man, they cranked out Ordinary Man in 6 weeks or something. It was nothing.
Like start to finish. Yeah.
Patient Number 9 took a little longer, just because it was, health stuff with my dad, Andrew's schedule. It was, there was a lot of back and forth and things like that. So it was, it was a process for sure. And there was, there was a few hiccups along the way, but I do think it is a phenomenally just masterful album.
Well, it got nominated for 3 Grammys and won 2, including Best Rock Album, which is fucking
amazing.
We couldn't have been more excited for your dad than that. And I know that meant a lot to him to win that category. It was
not metal rock.
And,
I thought that was cool.
The thing is, too, it was deserved. A lot of times the Grammys is bullshit. It's like, whatever. Those were deserved recognitions. And it was just, Dan and I had mentioned this to you before. We're at the Patient Number 9 listening party at SiriusXM Studios. We were fortunate enough to get invited out for that. And you were there. We saw you bring your dad in and come down the steps that day. And you never came into the room and said hello to anybody. You should come out and waved at us all. You were laying back, keeping it chill back there in the back. But we saw you. But we were there. And when we heard the album for the first time, Dan and I look at each other and we're just like, this fucking smokes Ordinary Man. And we loved Ordinary Man. Loved it. We were like, there's no way they can beat that. That'll be the better one of the two. But after hearing it, we're like, this smokes it. And then after it was over, we kept discussing it in the show. And we're like, is it like revisionist history now? Like, are we remembering it better than it was? Will it not really age as well as we think? And then when the album came out, it's like, no, this album was a massive, massive step forward. And like Dan said, his best album since Osmosis.
Yeah. I think it's
74 years old.
Too, since Osmosis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is he right now? I know he's talking about he's writing a follow-up, which is exciting. Do you know how far along the process they are, Jack?
They haven't actually, unless he's been kind of, coming up with melody lines and lyrics without just kind of, in his own time. They haven't actively started any writing sessions yet. So I think if anything, it's kind of in like a passive, stage.
Right.
But I know they're supposed to start up in January, February of next year. So
yeah, now I'm smiling.
Yeah. and that was my question to him when we were at the Sirius party. I said, is there plans for another album? And him and Andrew both was like, fuck yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Andrew's become like the whisperer. I mean, everyone wants to work with him now. You got the Stones and Elton John and
Eddie Vedder.
So here's my theory. Your dad said there may be one guest on the new record. And I know Andrew Watt said, no, let me back up. Mick Jagger said that the person that turned them on to Andrew Watt was Paul McCartney.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to happen. Paul McCartney's got to be on the record this time. It's got to.
No, I don't think it's going to be Paul McCartney.
Boo.
At least to my knowledge, it's not going to be Paul McCartney. I can't say who I have heard it to be, but I think fans will be over the moon.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I think fans will be more excited about this person than they will Paul McCartney.
Well, McCartney would be for your dad, though. That would be his thing for sure.
That would be you know, my dad would be happy about that. But I think as far as, you know, fans and folks that, you know, are, you know,
oh wow,
through Ozzy fans, will be really
he's stoking the fire, man.
Appreciative.
I love it. That's awesome.
It's gonna be Jakey Lee. I'm calling it right now. Jakey Lee is
That's
back
what I'm thinking
track.
too, Josh. 100%.
No, I don't think it's Jakey.
So I would say, you know, your dad, a lot of people don't realize his voice is very similar to Lennon, obviously, because he's such a big influence on your dad. Him and McCartney would make a brilliant record together. There's no question about it. I wish Paul would see it, because Ozzy's about the only guy I feel on the planet that would get that John and Paul sound. And I think that's, when you listen to the ballads Ozzy does, it is, his voice is incredible. And he's got that Beatles vibe always all over it.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
And
it's his biggest influence.
Yeah, no question about it.
And I would be remiss not to give Jack credit. You did pull Paul McCartney onto the God Bless Ozzy documentary.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. Good job.
Yeah. We had
McCartney.
to jumpsuits and hoops for that one, but we made it happen.
Yeah. What do you think of the new AI technique that Here and Now did with the Beatles?
I appreciate it. I think it's great that it's giving life to things that were, for all reason, were considered dead. You know, I do like it, and I think it's great. And I am a fan of, you know, utilizing AI when it's appropriate.
Right.
You know, I don't. It should be the it shouldn't be the opening. Like it shouldn't be all you do. It should be used like they used it.
Like that.
Yeah.
So
and they're not recreating John Lennon's voice, right? They just separated it from his original demo. It's beautiful how they did it, and he sounds amazing, like he's in the room with you, which is really, really cool. Have you heard some of the crazy AI stuff out there, of like Ozzy singing these other songs?
I have not, but I have not. But I think it's you know, so you know how we released the Hellraiser video with Lemmy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've had this idea since then that we want to do an Ozzy and Lemmy cartoon, kind of like Rick and Morty type, you know, just weird.
Genius.
And you know, my suggestion is, hey, why don't we use this AI technology for Lemmy's voice? And you know, and obviously with Lemmy's family's permission and things like that. Like I love that there is the technology there to continue on, you know, with creating art.
Yeah, infinitely. So have you heard this one? Let's see. That is your dad doing Shania Twain, and it sounds perfect.
Holy shit, that's good.
It's really good. Wait till the chorus.
It's scary.
Wow.
It's scary, Jack.
Wow.
Yeah.
He always could rock a ballad, right?
Yeah.
It just shows how great your dad is. It makes the song so much better. That's awesome.
So like we found that, and we were like, okay, we need to kind of like burn a copy of that somehow so we can just actually jam it and pretend it's a new Ozzy song. But,
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, it's funny that they used this Shania Twain song, because I'm adamant about this. I want my dad to re-release Close Your Eyes Forever, and I want him to do a country version of it.
Wow, that would be awesome.
If you listen to that song, it's a full-on country song.
It could be.
It
would
could
be
for sure.
And
absolutely,
if he did a duet with, like, you know, a big country, you know,
Carrie Underwood or something.
Yeah.
Carrie just covered Mama, I'm Coming Home and smoked it, right?
Exactly.
So
I think your dad should do an album of ballads. I nobody does a ballad better than Ozzy, and I just think it would be amazing. I know the kids want the rock stuff, and you know, we're all getting older. I love the rock stuff too, but I think a album of Ozzy doing ballads with Zach would be absolutely
that would be good.
We would. We told Barbara Ann Wild one time, have you ever listened? I'm sure you have Zach's Book of Shadows records, the kind of acoustic albums. They're amazing. And picture one like that, Johnny Cash style, with your dad singing, Zach doing the acoustic guitars with electric leads.
My dad won't do acoustic.
It'd be smoking hot.
He won't. I've had so many conversations like, why have you never done an unplugged? Why do you never do acoustic? And he just doesn't like it.
Interesting. There is the one Dreamer acoustic version that he released on the Japanese single of Dreamer. I'm getting into the real geekdom stuff now.
Yeah, you are. Wow, you're getting deep.
But he used the same exact vocal cut that's on the main track, so he never had.
And the same for Goodbye to Romance. They just pulled the electric guitar off and left the acoustic, which was gorgeous.
Which is gorgeous. I think that was to more bring up what Randy does, because it's kind of buried a little bit, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So real quick, I don't know if you saw Bob Daisley did respond to the stuff you guys said on the podcast about the Holy Grail. So Josh, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So of course you unleashed a can of worms by mentioning the Holy Grail. This has been a topic among diehard fans for a decade. And they do exist. Bob has released a couple snippets on his website. You can actually go and listen to them. And they were initially going to be on the 30th anniversary box set for Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman as a bonus CD. Unfortunately, negotiations fell through. The idea got pulled, and they went with the live record instead. And that's when they did the Ozzy live. You can hear the snippets on Bob's website. They are not awful quality. Your daddy's memory on that one's a little
could be awful for Ozzy,
but they're not professional quality.
I think that's kind of what he was trying to say.
Absolutely.
It's not. I think where he went with it is like, if you're going to release it, like there's got to be a standard to it. You don't want to, I think Randy deserves nothing but the best, and it's like you don't want to release something that's like.
And I agree totally. We stated that way to kind of for you to answer that way, so that fans understand. He's not saying you can't understand the shit. He's saying it's not a professional quality album. You cannot sell that in stores.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's what he said. He goes, he recorded it on just like a tape recorder. Like, it's not a real studio recording. It's not from the deck. It's from the mixer or anything like that. So, and to my knowledge, the way that this is just the way it was kind of I heard. Now, could be wrong, but my parents felt that the way that the terms of the deal, it was a big ask, and ultimately, and what they said in the podcast was it should be left to Randy's family. That should be, because that's what ultimately they're trading on at that point. No one gives a shit that it's Bob Daisley on that. People give a shit that it's Randy Rhoads. I'm not being a dick. The people don't give a shit that it's my dad on that. People want to hear and see more Randy Rhoads.
Yeah.
And so,
go ahead.
My parents, that perspective is like, that should be a Randy's family decision for that to exist or not.
So, and I think you're spot on, Jack, and I'll tell you why, and you probably don't even know this, but there are demos of the Bark at the Moon era out there that Josh and I have copies of, and there's not a lot of replay value in it. I love it because I'm a completist and I love your father, and I love hearing his creative mind work. I love when he comes up with melodies and he's just kind of singing off the top of his head, and to me it's like awesome. But at the end of the day, nobody even cares those are out there, but it's because it's Randy, and you just hit it right on the head.
Yeah, and that's and I think collectively my parents and the management and and everyone was just like, this is a Randy property at the end of the day, and and just because there's such little out there of him, and and they just felt it was in bad form.
Yeah, I'd almost rather see the Southampton show released, which is a show that they recorded in 1980 with the original band.
I've heard it.
Yeah. Oh,
you heard Iron Mountain on the Jack Ozzy's World Detour.
It's in Iron Mountain. Yeah, and that was it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and I forget that there is a reason why. There's some. I forget why. I can't get.
You can remember why, I'd appreciate it, because I've wondered for 30 years why they haven't released it.
Half of it's out there.
Well, for one, I think they thought it was lost.
Of course.
It did get lost for a while. I don't think anyone knew it was in Iron Mountain when we went, but there is a specific reason why. Hold on, let me text.
Okay,
No,
here we go.
awesome.
Let's get some
Let's
answers.
get a response because I
Let's
do.
do it.
If he's texting Sharon Osbourne, that means she's officially been on our show now.
That's awesome.
That was an excellent show, Jack. I told you when I met you the other day. I loved how Jack and Ozzy's World Detour debunked the myth that he's like a bumbling, stumbling buffoon. He got to really flex his intelligence on that show, and really show the world what his knowledges really are and how intelligent he really is. And that show was just so good for that very reason. And it's just comical and fun to watch on top of that.
Well,
yeah, I mean, it was a great show. It was a ton of fun to make, and I loved the experience. You know, it's one of those things where I just wish I could go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Any chance of another season?
Probably not. It's just too hard on my dad. I mean, the day so long. I mean, we'd be working for 9 hours, just go, and just the wear and tear on him. It was a real ass kicker. And you know, I felt bad at the end of the day because it's like, listen, when you're my dad's age, you got to be really strategic with your time.
Right.
And it was like he would go for a couple weeks at a time, and we'd be traveling, and it's like it's fucking A&E. They're not paying him millions and millions of dollars. Yeah. And so from like a business standpoint, I was like, it's really not worth your while to be doing this outside of just us fucking around.
YouTube bonding. Yeah.
And
which is awesome.
But we got 3 seasons out of it, and I'm like, cool, that was awesome. It was a great
And for people that really knew the show well, we heard Dark Side Blues there for the first time because he kept singing it, and you go, Dad, write that fucking song. And then ended up putting it on Ordinary Man and on Patient Number 9, actually.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it began there.
Hold on, let me just text this. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, let's see if we get a response before this is over.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The next couple.
Go ahead, Josh.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
So, I should have asked this right away. How is your dad's health? Mm-hmm. And, you know, do you foresee him hopefully maybe doing like a Vegas thing where he's not having to move around? And to me, that makes the most logical sense.
Sure. His health is improving. He's had his final surgery. They fixed all the mess ups in his, you know, the shit that got rocked in his neck. And, you know, I think the goal is to kind of, before a residency, it'd be like, okay, let's do the odd festival date here and there. Let's kind of see where you're at and build from that. So I don't think he'll ever tour again, but I could see him doing a residency at some point.
One of my ideas I had that I mentioned on the show before was if we were to do Ozzfest 2024 and have it be like an Ozzy celebration, which it always kind of was anyway, right? But you have, you know, for one, I want to know here in a minute what bands you might ask to play that off the top of your head. Who currently you would like to do a new Ozzfest 2024?
Definitely Crazy Town. Definitely Crazy Town.
Okay, they're back. They're having fist fights like every other day on like off stage. So yeah. But my theory was if you did that and then at the end of the night had like an Ozzy and Friends jam where your dad's not on stage yet, but like other people are doing his songs like with his band. And then Ozzy comes out and does maybe 5 songs to close the night.
I want to do a one-off festival and call it the Ozzfest Masters. And it's like all the great bands that came out of Ozzfest. And just, I mean, you're kind of seeing it to a degree now with a lot of these festivals. It's basically Ozzfest. They've just crammed it into one day. But yeah, I would love to do that. And like you said, like end it with some, you know, huge kind of tribute to my dad and have a bunch of, you know, like a big giant party.
You could have Pantera there again now. It wouldn't mean the brothers aren't there, but you could have Pantera. Yeah.
You know, it's amazing because really before Ozzfest, Ozzy really was known for breaking bands. I mean, he broke Motley Crue, he broke Rat, he broke Metallica. I mean, Anthrax opened for him on the No Rest for the Wicked tour. So, I mean, really, Ozzfest was just a natural progression at the end of the day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it was, and you just, listen, we spoke about it earlier, but the amount of bands that had huge success after being on Ozzfest. I'm not saying it was all us. Like, no, these were amazing bands. We just gave them the platform to do what they were doing already. And it's really special to see, you know, it's like from, like you said, Disturbed, Godsmack, System of a Down, Incubus. Right. I mean, the list goes, Slipknot. I mean, there's so many bands that kind of their first big tour was Ozzfest.
And people now don't even remember. I remember the first year System of a Down was there, and that's back when Serge would paint his face.
Mm-hmm.
And like people don't even know he did that early on, but he did it at Ozzfest.
That's
so
98.
And I was at the one, you guys mentioned it. If listeners, if you've not listened to the Osborne's Ozzfest podcast, you simply got to. It's amazing. The behind the scenes stories are excellent. You answered a question that has plagued me my entire life. If you can give me 1 second, I'm going to show you something.
Okay.
Oh, Josh.
Can you see that, Jack? It's a piece of wood.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the riot.
I was there,
Okay.
and I kept a piece of wood as a keepsake.
Yeah.
And we have wondered, there was so many rumors. There was rumors of a bomb threat. There was all this shit, and you all finally answered the question of why your dad no-showed that night on the Ozzfest podcast.
He wouldn't get off the plane, threw a huge fucking tantrum, and just wouldn't get off the plane.
Now tell our listeners, not that they don't need to go listen to yours, but why did he throw a tantrum?
So what happened was, he'd been like fucking around with pain pills, and my mom had found them and like chucked them in the toilet. And I think it really set into him that like, oh wait, I don't have any pain pills anymore. And he just lost his shit and just refused to get off the plane. And I can remember being sat, we're on a beautiful private plane, and there's Robert Trujillo, and I think Joe Holmes was playing for him then, and Mike Borden. We're all on the plane, whole band, the tour manager, dad's assistant, like everyone. It's a big private plane full of people. And he's like, I'm not getting off this fucking plane. And mom's like, and they start going back and forth, and it's getting heated. And he like lost his shit and started like beating up the plane. And he's like, I'm not getting and the band's trying to like cool him down, being like, dude, like, come on, we got this gig. There's thousands of people. They love you. They want you to get. And he's like, fuck this. I'm out of here. No, he didn't even say I'm out of here. He's like, I'm just not getting off the plane. And so as the clock was ticking, we started getting calls like, hey, people know that it's got out that Ozzy's not here. Where's Ozzy? And like, what's going on? And it was just every cell phone call that came in, it was, hey, they're getting pretty pissed off. They're tearing up the lawn. Hey, they're ripping the seats out. Hey, they just knocked the fence down. They flipped the car. It was just like
all that
escalation.
I was kicking cup holders off the seats in the amphitheater area. Yeah. So what they did, for those that don't know, Ozzy's band, like you said, Joe Holmes, Robert Trujillo, and Mike Borden came out and jammed on like Marilyn Manson sung Crazy Train, which was actually fucking awesome.
Really?
And yeah, man, he tore it up with those guys. And
Gosh, that was exactly my response, Jack. Really?
Dimebag Darrell sung Bark at the Moon with your dad's band that night. And I
would have enjoyed that. I would have thought that was
I loved it. But we wanted Ozzy to come out then, and he didn't. And then they kind of just said good night, and everybody's like, "What the fuck?" Like as a fan in the seats, you just didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they were gonna get up there on the stage and be like, "So Ozzy's having a temper tantrum," and
I don't think so. Absolutely. But Jack, thank you so much for your time. You are just an awesome. How is your health?
I'm great. Yeah, I'm chilling.
Yeah, you look awesome. You really do.
You do, man. You slim down a ton.
Thank you.
You got to when you're climbing rocks and shit all the time.
Exactly. Running after a bunch of kids. So
definitely. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
The world. I mean, you are an awesome gentleman for doing this, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And tell your dad there's two guys that run a podcast that love him dearly.
Well, I absolutely will, and I could easily foresee him coming on to do this at some point. So
man.
Or maybe you guys will have to fly out to LA and actually do
we would do it.
Done.
Listen, can I tell you the story? Do you have 2 seconds, Jack, before we let you go? So when we got the call, Dan was the one that got the message that said we were invited for the Patient Number 9 listening party. I live in Kentucky. They messaged us on Tuesday at 4:30 and said, you got to be here on Friday at noon, LA time. I literally didn't tell my bosses at work, didn't do shit. I went straight to the fucking phone, booked me a flight, because Dan, of course, is like, dude, we got to go. I'm like, I got to go. Yeah. And the next day was on a plane to Phoenix, met Dan, and we drove up there. Like, it was literally like boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Had to make it. There was no way in fucking hell I was going to miss this thing.
Yeah.
Like, no fucking way. And we would totally fly out to LA for that. Don't hesitate. Don't tempt us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The best part is
I got stuck in the worst traffic jam you can think of, and I had to pee so bad, Jack. I was.
It's LA for you.
Let me
was
throw in
LA.
there. We've known each other for a decade, but had never met.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm trying to pee in a cup while I'm driving. It was a whole experience.
It was the first time I ever met this guy. He's trying to piss in a cup in the desert in LA traffic or whatever. It's like
it's like an Ozzy themed 90-day fiance friendship.
It is 100%.
It was great.
Absolutely.
It was great.
Yeah. Josh and I do have known each other for 10 years, but only met once. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Any word back on that text yet, by the way?
Let's see. Hold on. Let's see.
Okay.
Nothing yet.
Nah.
Okay.
Well, next time we speak, I will have an answer for you. How about that?
And of course, having your dad on would be our dream come true. So there's nothing we don't fucking know about this. And it's so funny because, and everyone that listens to our shows, like, man, just your all's passion and knowledge is just through the roof. And we're like, man, it's just what we enjoy. We did this before the podcast on a public, in a computer platform, just back and forth. So it was just
like Ozzy.
Yeah.
Yep. Legit.
Yeah. Or we would talk on the phone for like an hour and a half talking about anything you could think of about your father, the minute details of You're No Different from Bark at the Moon, whatever. So, and then we just decided we just need to make a show.
Just go do it.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys have like a core audience that seems to kind of?
Yeah, I'd say we have about 100,000 listens so far.
Wow. That's great.
So not too bad. Combined with like Spotify and YouTube and everything. So we've had about 45 episodes and about 100,000 listens.
Yeah,
that's great, man.
Thank you. And it's obviously not Osborne numbers, but like for where we started with nothing to that, we're like, it's amazing.
It's you guys are doing such inside baseball, and there's there's Ozzy fans, but there's probably very few Ozzy fans that want to get into the minutia like you guys do.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I think it's awesome.
We get about 1,000 listens a week.
Yeah.
Great.
Which we're and even guest wise, we're shocked. I think we were 4 or 5 episodes in, and Gus came on, and we were blown away that he would come on that quick. And then Adam came on, Adam Wakeman, Kathy and Kelly Rhoads came on. But we're not guest driven. We really enjoy the goofy topics like Blizzard of Oz versus Diary of a Madman, or we did Scream versus Black Rain, and top 10 Ozzy. Yeah, just goofy shit, but we enjoy it.
It's great. I love it. Very flattering. Right. Nice to see.
Thank you. It was great having you on, Jack. Thank you for everything.
Thank you,
You're
guys.
amazing.
Thanks, Jack. You're the best, man. Such a nice guy. We appreciate you.
I was going to say I'll talk to you soon, but hopefully.
Hey, come back on.
See ya.
All right. Bye, Jack.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you. And we do want to let you know, we do edit the show. So if at any moment there's anything you say, hey, let's cut that or let's get rid of that, that's not a problem.
It's all good. Let it rip.
Good deal.
Awesome.
All right. Good deal.
Well, maybe we'll get some dirt going.
Yeah. Start some shit.